Okay.
All right. So we're streaming live. Beautiful, beautiful. Welcome everyone to this session number 20 of Advent and Divine Justice. This is Sunday, December 12th, 2021, and we are going to be reviewing paragraphs 45 through 46, and we're going to go past that. We look forward to today. We're going to do some review of some of the materials, which of course is from the PowerPoint we left off last week. So we're going to be starting up this session number 20 with information from last week, reviewing that and moving forward. But before that, let's say our opening prayer. It's going to be a prayer for the southern states. It's from Tablets of the Divine Plan, written by Abdul Baha and revealed to the Bahá'ís of the southern states. Every soul who travels through the cities, villages, and hamlets of these states and is engaged in the diffusion of the fragrances of God should peruse this commune every morning. Dear Amira, if you could say the opening prayer, please.
Oh my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a moth into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest. Abdul Baha.
Here you go. So we are going to begin. If Jeremiah, you could kindly read the first slide. We're going to be starting with paragraphs 45 to 46, Chastity and Holiness, Moral Standards for a Chaste and Holy Life. Can you please read this paragraph 45?
As to a chaste and holy life, it should be regarded as no less essential a factor that must contribute its proper share to the strengthening and vitalization of the Baha'i community, upon which must in turn depend the success of any Baha'i plan or enterprise. In these days, when the forces of irreligion are weakening the moral fiber and undermining the foundation of individual morality, the obligation of chastity and holiness must claim an increasing share of the attention of the American believers, both in their individual capacities and as the responsible custodians of the interests of the faith of Baha'u'llah. In the discharge of such an obligation, to which the special circumstances resulting from an excessive and enervating materialism now prevailing in the country lend particular significance, they must play a conspicuous and predominant role. All of them, be they men or women, must at this threatening hour, when the lights of religion are fading out and its restraints are one by one being abolished, pause to examine themselves, scrutinize their conduct, and with characteristic resolution arise to purge the life of their community of every trace of moral laxity that might stain the name or impair the integrity of so holy and precious a faith. A chaste and holy life must be made the controlling principle in the behavior and conduct of all Bahá'ís, both in their social relations with the members of their own community and in their contact with the world at large. It must adorn and reinforce the ceaseless labors and meritorious exertions of those whose inviolable position is to propagate the message and to administer the affairs of the faith of Baha'u'llah. It must be upheld in all of its integrity and implications in every phase of the life of those who fill the ranks of that faith, whether in their homes, their travels, their clubs, their societies, their entertainments, their schools, and their universities. It must be accorded special consideration in the conduct of these social activities of every Baha'i summer school and any other occasions on which Baha'i community life is organized and fostered. It must be closely and continually identified in the mission of the Baha'i youth, both as an element in the life of the Baha'i community, and as a factor in the future progress and orientation of the youth of their own country. Such a chaste and holy life, with its implication of modesty, purity, temperance, decency, and clean-mindedness, involves no less than the exercise of moderation in all that pertains to dress, language, amusements, and all artistic and literary avocations. The beloved guardian highlights the importance of a chaste and holy life in strengthening and vitalizing a Baha'i community, as well as ensuring the success of Baha'i plans. In these paragraphs, Shoghi Effendi emphasizes that moral standards should be the controlling principles in the life of every individual Baha'i, both within and without the Baha'i community. Modesty, purity, temperance, decency, and clean-mindedness are attributes of a chaste and holy life. So the major key points from paragraph 45 to 46 and 47. All members of the Baha'i community must examine their conduct to remove every trace of moral laxity that might stain the name of the faith. Chastity, in the strict sense, means no sexual intimacy before marriage. A holy life in the Baha'i teachings is one of attachment to God, his precepts, and his will. The moral standards of a chaste and holy life in the Baha'i faith is not meant to reject or condemn the sexual impulse, but to control and regulate it. The moral standards defined in the Baha'i teachings should be the controlling principles in the life of every individual Baha'i. Modesty is reflected by a mode of dress and behavior that do not arouse others sexually. Purity is freedom from contamination, but as a quality of an individual, it implies freedom from sexual immorality and a rejection of harmful substances. Temperance is a voluntary self-restraint in controlling an excess of emotions and impulses, anger, vanity, and sexual desire, originating from one's character. Decency is a behavior that is good, moral, and acceptable in a moral society. Clean-mindedness is a quality of our inner life based on how noble our thoughts and feelings are in response to what we see, hear, or experience. So, John.
So now begins the next part. This is where we left off. And Amira is not yet here to be able to read. She's with the baby, so I'll start reading this. And then we would like to cycle through readers, actually. Scott, would you like to start reading this first?
Sure.
All right.
Chastity and holiness. In paragraph 45, the beloved guardian highlights the importance of a chaste and holy life in strengthening and vitalizing the Baha'i community, and thus leading to the success of activities undertaken for the faith. Shoghi Effendi stresses that the community should be especially conscious of the need for chastity in light of the weakening of moral standards by the forces of irreligion. All members of the community, regardless of gender, must take time to evaluate their conduct and strive to remove any hint of sexual immorality that might sully the name of the faith. Chastity and holiness, as mentioned by Shoghi Effendi, together reflect a unique pattern of life. In this regard, the Supreme Body, the Universal House of Justice, explains that in the Advent of Divine Justice, quote, the beloved guardian is describing the requirements not only of chastity, but of a chaste and holy life. Both the adjectives are important, unquote. That's from a letter written in 1979. The root word of the word chaste and chastity comes from Latin adjective castus, meaning pure, holy, pious, and godly. The word chaste was introduced into the English language in about the 13th century. Initially, as an adjective, it conveyed the concept of virtue or purity from unlawful sexual intercourse, though the meaning changed over time. In the 14th century, chaste meant a virgin person, and by the 15th century, it implied the sense of sexually pure. By 1753, the meaning of chaste was, quote, severely simple or unadorned, unquote. In traditional religions, the concept of chastity implies that sexual relationships are acceptable when performed within the framework of marriage between wife and husband. All sexual acts outside marriage are explicitly condemned. In Catholicism, chastity is considered the opposite of lust, which is classified as one of the 7 deadly sins. Pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth were the 7 deadly sins. In marriage, a wife and husband are expected to commit to a lifelong relationship with fidelity, excluding sexual intimacy with other people. In Islam, chastity is binding on both men and women, and both genders are subject to legal punishment if they break this law. However, in many Muslim countries, the standard applied to the unchaste behavior of men is more lenient than that applied to women. In some communities, there is an implicit acceptance or disregard of adultery and promiscuity by men. In response to an individual, the beloved guardian states, quote, chastity in the strict sense means not to have sexual intercourse or sexual intimacies before marriage, unquote. He then explains, quote, in the general sense, it means not to be licentious. This does not mean we Baha'is believe sexual relations to be impure or wrong. On the contrary, they are natural and should be considered one of God's many blessings, unquote. Elucidating on the meaning of chastity, the Supreme Body explains, quote, concerning the positive aspects of chastity, the Universal House of Justice states that the Baha'i faith recognizes the value of the sex impulse and holds that the institution of marriage has been established as the channel of its rightful expression. Baha'is do not believe that the sex impulse should be suppressed, but that it should be regulated and controlled. Chastity in no way implies withdrawal from human relationships. It liberates people from the tyranny of the ubiquity of sex. I'm sorry, I'll get that. A person who is in control of his sexual impulses is enabled to have profound and enduring friendships with many people, both men and women, without ever sullying that unique and priceless bond that should unite men and women.
Jeremiah, you kind of went out of it.
Went by 6 pages.
All right, so where we are now, going back to that part. Okay, could you finish that sentence, please, Scott?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, a person who is in control of his sexual impulses is enabled to have profound and enduring friendships with many people, both men and women, without ever sullying that unique and priceless bond that should unite man and wife.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So if we could reflect on what we just read, we learned exactly what you think from this.
Well, we definitely learned that sex is regulated to within the confines of marriage. So, but that I think it says at the end here, chastity in no way implies withdrawal from human relationships. It liberates people from the tyranny of the ubiquity of sex. A person who is in control of his sexual impulses is enabled to have profound and enduring friendships with many people, both men and women, without ever sullying that unique and priceless bond that should unite man and wife.
So what is ubiquity?
I looked it up. It's the state or capacity of being everywhere, especially at the same time. Omnipresence. Tyranny.
That's interesting. So this concept of chastity, it is liberating people from this ever pervasive expression of sex in a global sense. So reserving sex for special occasions rather than always.
Yeah. It would relieve your thought process a lot. You could open up, spend time thinking about a lot of other things.
And what would those other things be in terms of thinking less about sex and thinking more about other things? What would those other things be?
It may put you just things that would be useful to mankind. I know that might sound strange, but your work or your relationship with God, things, instruments that would make a society better.
Mm-hmm. So Amira here says, thinking about your other your loved one in place of thinking of yourself.
Sure.
Amira, could you read the next part, please?
Where is it?
Right here on this. The Bahá'í standard of chastity. Right here.
The Baha'i standard of chastity, the chosen ones of God, should not look at the depraved condition of the society in which they live, nor at the evidences of moral degradation and frivolous conduct which the people around them display. They should not content themselves merely with relative distinction and excellence. Rather, they should fix their gaze upon nobler heights by setting the counsels and exhortations of the pen of glory as their supreme goal. Then it will be readily realized how numerous are the stages that still remain to be traversed, and how far off the desired goal lays, a goal which is none other than exemplifying heavenly morals and virtues. Shoghi Effendi.
All right. So what is a reflection on this passage? So what is our reflection on this passage?
That everyone should fix their gaze upon nobler heights by setting the counsels and exhortations of the pen of glory as their supreme goal. That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and then when people actually start to focus on what's really important instead of material and carnal life, and they'll realize how far and how much work they actually have to do.
So can you elaborate on that last part?
Well, at the end, it says a goal which is none other than exemplifying heavenly morals and virtues. And then before that, it just states, realize how numerous are the stages that still remain to be traversed and how far off the desired goal lies. So,
if we're only going to take in this life, if we're looking for trying to improve our morals and our our virtues and morals, and then those are things we can take with us. Those are our spirit that to life beyond this plane.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not taking our the physical acts that we perform here with us. We can't take those with us.
right. Yep. And I find it interesting that the stages that still remain to be traversed and how far off they truly are.
It's like a lot of things that when we might look at just trustworthiness or honor, or some of these things, we think we tell the truth one time, boy, we're really excited about that. If we've lied most of our life, then we find out we have to keep on telling the truth all the time, and sometimes we'll falter on that, and we have to when we take ourselves to account from a different point on our climb up a mountain or a hill, if you will, we see things differently. And that's why we can take our time spending time looking at those where we need to be moving forward, rather than thoughts on physical issues.
Thank you for sharing that. So our use of chastity is that it clears our schedule, so to speak, for other equally important things in our life that we can do together, and not focusing on one important part of our life, but focusing on all the important parts of our lives.
Or the meaningful parts of our life, the ones,
Yeah.
the things that will develop long-lasting relationships and virtues.
So it's appropriate to express chastity in the context of marriage. It's
Right.
appropriate to express chastity in the context of receiving payment for good things. It's okay to express chastity for having relationships with people that are very deep and rewarding, that it doesn't involve so many other distractions that will really cause issues with our bonds that we're intending to create, that will weaken our bonds ultimately.
What is chastity?
Amira, would you like to?
What is
Sure.
chastity? That's a question.
Well, that's the question. What is chastity? You want to answer it?
I told that I don't.
Does anyone have an answer what chastity is? So we just read a definition of it. If you'd like to go back to it, Jeremiah, or are you not able to go backwards on the PowerPoint? Okay, so okay. So the roots of the word chaste and chastity comes from Latin adjectives castus, meaning pure, holy, pious, and godly. The word chaste was introduced into the English language in about the 13th century. Initially, as an adjective, it conveyed the concept of virtue or purity from unlawful sexual intercourse, though the meaning changed over time. In the 14th century, chaste meant a virgin person, and by the 15th century, it implied the sense of sexually pure. By 1753, the meaning of chaste was severely simple and adorned.
So what is chastity? This was just a.
So it says here from Baha'u'llah, let your eye be chaste, your hand faithful, your tongue truthful, and your heart enlightened. So you could say in that context of that last definition as well, more this simplicity, this purity of intent when you are doing things. Whereas chastity promotes this purity of intent. Not having chastity allows for your intent to become diluted by other attractions and desires you may have.
Right.
Be it sexual, be it for money, be it for other forms of lust towards other things that you may have. This purity allows you to focus on what you actually intend. So if I'm doing business with someone, instead of having greed and avarice allow me to abuse that relationship. Yes, Amira, you raised your hand.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So some people see if someone is pure, they see it wrongly in a bad way. They see it that it's like a naive person. That so I just wanted to say that we should not confuse the two together, because it's different. To be pure is not to, like, the word simple. Some people use the word simple as a bad thing, but here if I say pure or simple person is a good thing, not a bad thing. But because some people see it as a bad thing, like he's naive, he doesn't know. But my question was, what is chastity? I meant like, so what are the implications? Like, when do you say that, oh, this person is chaste? Like, if we can give examples.
You wanted examples?
If you can.
I think in when I was a Christian, you know, that one of the 10 commandments, you see an expanding role of chastity or purity. If you think, in my mind, in the 10 commandments that Moses brought, it was you shouldn't have adultery should not commit adultery. And then when Jesus comes, he says, you know, that was, you know, that it has been said to you, but then I say that if you lust in your heart for someone, you've committed adultery. So that was a point at which we didn't even commit an act, a physical act. And then here we talk about chastity going even further. There are people who might read this and see this and say, well, that's not livable nowadays. And, you know, if people don't have sex outside of marriage, it's, they're very immature, or they're, like you were saying, simple and maybe derogatory. And, but there's been a change of that comes from different manifestations of God. I don't know what that part would be like in Islam. I haven't read the Quran enough to read that part.
Dear John, it's Ehsan. Just a quick comment. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Please,
Excellent.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Excellent. I apologize. I've been sick today, so thank you so much. Just a quick comment on Almira's insightful comment. As to the implications of chastity, that is coming up, okay? So this was a general definition that was presented on chastity as that has come from hundreds of years of what is chastity. And you could see the evolution even of the term itself. And it has become looser and looser as over the years of what is chastity. But the beloved guardian is coming up, as everything, he redefines what is chastity. He redefines what is a holy life. So it's very interesting. And also the terminology, which you're going to see these two words coming up in this section. And you'll see it coming up in the sense, I'm not going to give it away, but there's two words, and these two words are in nowhere else in the writings. And that's where the beloved guardian is redefining what chastity is, as well as what a holy life is. And so that's these 5 qualities, and you're going to be seeing this coming up. Excellent. Carry on, dear John. You're doing excellent as always. Thank you so much.
So this quote in front of us says, keep your hearts pure and your hands free from unrighteousness. Ehsan, if you don't mind, if you'd like to, could you comment on that?
So really quick, the heart, as we see, is one of the most commonly talked about in all the writings, the heart, and it's the seat of the soul. And so this is, we see it in the hidden words, let thy heart, talking about be this, the seat of the revelation, cleanse it for my manifestation. So cleaning of your heart, right? So this is a practice of, if you want to be in communion with your Lord, nothing, your heart cannot be sullied, it cannot be stained. So your heart, which is the seat of your soul, really your essence, who you are, should be pure. And your hands, meaning your deeds, whatever you do, not just your physical hands, but your actions, whatever you're doing, should be free from unrighteousness. And what is unrighteousness? It means injustice, anything that is immoral. And so, I apologize. So anything that is not right would be considered something immoral. And so when you come up to these qualities, which is in the very first line of, I believe, paragraph 47 off the top of my head. I don't have the full presentation in front of me, but I believe it's in the opening lines of paragraph 47, and it lists those qualities, namely temperance and purity. And these are the qualities that encapsulate what chastity, chaste, holy life is. And so when Almira was asked, what is chastity? What is holy life? It's the best example to look at what this is to look at the lives of Bahiya Khanum. Really, to look at the life of the Holy Family, Nawab, to look at how did they live? How were they so respectful, so honorable, so pure of mind and thought? Because we don't have examples in modern day society like the standard that the beloved guardian is talking about, other than really to look at the lives of the Holy Family. So that's really what we should, when we talk about this subject, go to and really study up on the lives, and then work on ourselves, just like we were talking about rectitude of conduct, the qualities there, the 7 qualities. Again, look at the example of His Holiness Abdul Baha and those. And so this is, as to Almira's questions, you'll look at these qualities, and then study it in consort with reflection on the biography on Bahiya Khanum, and then you'll see, okay, this makes sense, and then you can start working on it in that context. So that's all I have to share, dear John, on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Jeremiah, if you could go to the next slide. Holiness represents perfect purity and integrity of moral character. The beloved guardian defines a holy life in the Baha'i teachings as attachment to God, His precepts, and His will. Shoghi Effendi then continues by clarifying that we are not ascetics in any sense of the word. On the contrary, Baha'u'llah says God has created all the good things in the world for us to enjoy and partake of. But we must not become attached to them and put them before the spiritual things. I want to read this sentence again. We are not ascetics in any sense of the word. On the contrary, Baha'u'llah says God has created all the good things in the world for us to enjoy and to partake of. But we must not become attached to them and put them before the spiritual things. In this quote, I think this puts forth the entirety of the understanding of chastity and a holy life in the context of where our priorities are. Where we must not become attached to the things that we can enjoy of this world, and we shouldn't put them before the spiritual things. So where you have humans and you have things, for example, you're going to respect your fellow human beings and not kill them or hurt them or harm them or hurt their feelings over things. And that's a very difficult situation, especially where you see that this is not the case around you. Putting people over things in a very simple way is one of the many ways to live a holy life. Can we move to the next paragraph?
John, just a 2-second comment. Last week, we talked about the 3 realities that Abdul Baha addressed. The first one was the material reality, the physical, okay? The physical reality, the body, and we share that with the animal kingdom. In the sense, animals have a physical reality, we all turn to dust. And how we are, per se, superior and lords of nature is our intellectual capacity, which is our second reality. And so this intellectual reality Abdul Baha talks about. And then something unique to humanity is our soul, our spiritual reality. And this is very important and often ignored by most of humanity. And this is what should be in the driver's seat. This should be the jockey, per se, and the one that is in control. And this entire section, which you're covering, dear John, on chastity, is where the spiritual reality is in control of the material as well as the intellectual reality. So now the spiritual reality dominates over the entire reality of the individual. And actually, it's not, the other realities are ignored. That's where, that's very wrong thinking by people. That would be asceticism. It would be like go living in a monastery. No, actually, when the spiritual reality is completely in focus, it controls, and actually you enjoy everything that the world has to offer, but with boundaries. So we're not wild and cretins just going crazy over the world, but we enjoy the pleasures of the world, but with control. And so that's where the spirituality is the jockey and controlling the instincts of the per se the human and the baser needs of the individual, and putting a construct around, and so that the individual can live a wholesome and productive life. So this is really in that sense, but those are just sharing some thoughts on that. But I included that extract from His Holiness Abdul Baha as also, it's because it's also quoted in Advent to Divine Justice. The most vital duty, I mean, of all the duties there is, and some people would say, oh, teaching is the most important thing that anyone could do. True, it's the most important duty, right? Teaching. But even before even teaching, you gotta transform your character. That's why we talk about these are spiritual prerequisites for the success of all teaching plans. So the most vital duty in this day is to purify your characters. And purification of the characters is rectitude of conduct, chaste and holy life. As well as we're going to come up in part 14, 15, which is freedom from racial prejudices. So of all the duties is this, purification of the characters. And for what purpose? The success of all teaching plans. So this is really what it's all about. So that when anyone opens their mouth, even before they open their mouth, they see in their character that this person is walking a Baha'i life. And so this is really what it's the beloved guardian is really stressing. He wants a new race of men, a new standard. And they will be called the name of Baha, as Bahá'ís. So that's really all of it. I just wanted to share on that. Thank you, Sir Dear John. Thank you.
Thank you so much for explaining that, Ehsan, as well. So in one sentence as a takeaway, not to belabor it, but one sentence as a takeaway, Ehsan, would you say that chastity enables us to set our priorities straight, to put the spiritual above everything else, but not to put them away?
Well,
But-
chastity brings order. I see chastity like the stop signs. Okay, chastity is order to the world. You know, without stop signs saying, you know, there will be chaos. But the chastity is order to the world. It is saying, hey, there's only so far you can go without breaching morality. And morality is dictated by these spiritual teachers. The spiritual teachers have said what is good and what is bad. So the spiritual teachers have brought order to the world. And so chastity is, okay, you only can, if you do this, you will be chaste. If you don't do this, you are not chaste. So there is, per se, stop signs. And that is the order to everything. And so that is, as I see it, it's the balance. That is really the sense of order that we have. And either you do it or you don't do it. Everything is for your own good. And these are laws in that sense. And just like in Kitab Ahdas, the laws are there not to be some heavy book to dictate our lives. It's all the laws are for our own spiritual well-being. It's for our own goodwill. Baha'u'llah doesn't benefit by us saying our obligatory prayers. He's not up there, you know, listening. Hey, this person hasn't said their obligatory prayer or something, and he's saying, okay, bad points to this person. Everything is for our own spiritual well-being, as is chastity. It's for our own spiritual growth. And so this is how it is. It's just like stop signs. You can say, I don't believe in stop signs. I'll do whatever I want. And very soon you'll be in a car accident. So this is how I see it. Just sharing my thoughts on that. Thank you so much, dear John.
So if we could have someone to read these beautiful quotes on the screen. Amira, would you like to read some of the quotes?
I'll read them, John.
Okay.
A holy life. This quote is, whoever does righteousness, whether male or female, while he is a believer, we will surely cause him to live a good life, and we will surely give them their reward hereafter, according to the best of what they use to do. Quran 16:97. But as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. 1 Peter 1:15-16. For God saved us and called us to live a holy life. He did this not because we deserved it, but because that was his plan from before the beginning of time, to show us his grace through Christ Jesus. 2 Timothy 1:9. Holiness is not just for some select few spiritual giants. It is not just for pious people who sit around all day with nothing to do, but be holy. Everyone whose names the name of the Lord is called to live a holy life. Purge your hearts of worldly desires and let angelic virtues be your adorning. The time has come when not but the purest motive, supported by deeds of stainless purity, can ascend to the throne of the Most High and be acceptable unto him. For God did not call us to be impure, but to live a holy life. His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha further clarifies the nature of attachment to God and its practical implications. All that has been created is for man, who is at the apex of creation and who must be thankful for the divine bestowers, so that through his gratitude he may learn to understand life as a divine benefit. If we hold enmity with life, we are ingrates, for our material and spiritual existence is the outward evidences of the divine mercy. Therefore, we must be happy and pass our time in praises, appreciating all things. But there is something else, detachment. We can appreciate without attaching ourselves to the things of this world. It sometimes happens that if a man loses his fortune, he is so disheartened that he dies or becomes insane. While enjoying the things of this world, we must remember that one day we shall have to do without them. Attach not thyself to anything unless in it thou seest the reality of God. This is the first step into the court of eternity. The earth life lasts but a short time. Even its benefits are transitory. That which is temporary does not deserve our heart's attachment. Detachment consists in refraining from letting our possessions possess us. Abdu'l-Baha, Divine Philosophy, pages 135 to 136. So over here it says detachment. Detachment consists in refraining from letting our possessions possess us. And another quote, detachment does not consist in setting fire to one's house or becoming bankrupt or throwing one's fortune out of the window or even giving away all of one's possessions. Detachment consists in refraining from letting our possessions possess us. Kind of makes me laugh. I mean, I not in a negative way, just the image of setting fire to one's house as a way of pursuing an ascetic life, I guess, lifestyle. Sorry, okay. That was a distraction. The holiness of our moral character must manifest itself in our deeds. In a letter written on his behalf, the beloved guardian counsels the youth to constantly and determinedly strive to exemplify a Baha'i life. Shoghi Effendi then explains what he means by a Baha'i life. In the world around us, we see moral decay, promiscuity, indecency, vulgarity, bad manners. The Baha'i young people must be the opposite of these things. And by their chastity, their uprightness, their decency, their consideration and good manners, attract others, old and young, to the faith. The world is tired of words. It wants example, and it is up to the Baha'i youth to furnish it. Let deeds, not words, be your adorning. So high must be your standard of excellence, and so pure and chaste your lives, that the moral influence you exert penetrates the consciousness of the wider community. It keeps doing that, sorry. Each time a person stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope. These ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Interesting.
So I included this extract from Robert Kennedy. Every time a person stands up for an ideal, and as Baha'is, we should be standing up for the principles of the faith. In this example, is chastity, the holy life. And every time, as Robert Kennedy says, every time we stand up for an ideal or acts to improve the life of others, they're sending forth this tiny ripple of hope. And these ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. So this is how, as Baha'is, we will tear down these walls, these that have been built up for eons about immorality, injustice, and tear them down. And as Almira was talking earlier and saying, these standards, these practices, people may see them as this not as socially cool. Even it's like it's would be naive, you know. I believe she would use the word naive, you know, being like this. But actually, we should be so socially aware of the malady and sickness that is going on today, that we should be counter to the problem, and then letting society know about the sickness and presenting the solution by our actions and words. So we should let humanity know what the problem is, what the sickness is that is going on in society, and then present the solution. This is exactly what the beloved guardian has done in Advent of Divine Justice. He presents first, if you scroll back in Advent of Divine Justice, he presented the maladies, the sickness that's going on in America, namely corruption, immorality, materialism, and all the problems. And then he presents his solutions, namely rectitude of conduct, chaste and holy life. So this is exactly, he is like a physician. He is literally presenting it like a physician. And that's how we should be going about in that sense. And so this was an awesome quote that I wanted to share on at this point in the presentation. Thank you so much.
So now it's talking about moral standards for chaste and holy life. The moral standard of a chaste and holy life in the Baha'i faith is not meant to reject or condemn the sex impulse, but to control and regulate it. This is clearly explained in a letter dated 13 December 1940, written on behalf of Shoghi Effendi to an individual believer. Concerning your question whether there are any legitimate forms of expression of the sex instinct outside of marriage, according to the Baha'i teachings, no sexual act can be considered lawful unless performed between lawfully married persons. Outside of marital life, there can be no lawful or healthy use of the sex impulse. And it says over here, sex is not a sin. It is God's gift to married couples for pleasure, procreation, and a beautiful expression of love, trust, and unity. Overall, the moral standards associated with the chaste and holy life in the Baha'i faith go far beyond governing the sexual relationship between individuals. Being chaste and holy together represents a pattern of living. In paragraph 46, the beloved guardian emphasizes that moral standards should be the controlling principles in the life of every individual Baha'i, both within and without the Baha'i community. They should be upheld in the behavior of the teachers of the faith and in its administrators, by the rank of believers in every aspect of their lives, in the social activities of Baha'i summer schools, and on any other occasion that forms a part of Baha'i community life. As part of the mission of the Baha'i youth, both in their Baha'i life and during their future progress and development. And then over here it says, chaste and holy life, a pattern for well-being. The fruit of the Spirit is self-control. Implications of a chaste and holy life. The beloved guardian opens paragraph 47 with the virtues that constitute a chaste and holy life, summarizing them as modesty, purity, temperance, decency, and clean-mindedness. Modesty. The word modesty conveys different meanings according to the context in which it is used. As a virtue, this is the quality of not being proud or boastful about one's abilities. Abdu'l-Baha states, "Act ye in such wise, showing forth pure and goodly deeds, and modesty and humility, that ye will cause others to be awakened." The defined and accepted standards of modesty may vary from one culture to another. Such standards determine how the appearance, behavior, and clothing of an individual is interpreted by others as modest or otherwise. It says over here, it's freedom from vanity, boastfulness, ostentation, or showy extravagance, regard for decency of behavior, speech, and dress, unassuming, unpretentious, unobtrusive, moderate, simple. Modesty is for both genders. Modesty encompasses your walk, your talk, your dress, your thinking, and your actions. We must practice modesty not only in our looks, but also in our whole deportment, and particularly in our dress, our walk, our conversation, and all similar actions. And this is Alphonsus Liguori. Can you elaborate on who that is, Esam?
Yes. So I just want to talk on if you scroll back one slide, dear Jeremiah. So
Okay.
This is the opening line of paragraph 47. And these are the 5 qualities that encapsulate what a chaste and holy life is. Okay. So when dear Almira was asking, what are the implications of a chaste and holy life? What does it look like? This is what it looks like. And then if you look at if someone is practicing modesty, purity, temperance, decency, clean-mindedness, and then you could, in the first one, which we're covering, is modesty. And if you scroll to the next one, modesty is of dress, of behavior, not acting in a lavish way, ostentatious manner. I can give you a perfect example of someone living a modest life would be the beloved guardian. Read Priceless Pearl in how the beloved guardian, how he dressed, how he walked, how he talked, how his mannerisms were, and how even though he had access to all the funds at the time, how he chose for his clothes and his, I mean, he's the most perfect example of living modestly, and the sense of, and being a perfect example of that through his deeds. So we have wonderful examples of these in our faith. And that's why not only we should study their lives, and so that we can work to bring that into our lives. And that's, as you had a question on this Alphonsus, individual. He was a writer as well as historian, as well as in early on. And it was just a very good extract on the practice of modesty. And so I found it apt in this section of, now if we want to practice it and bring it into our character, what does it look like? It not only looks, but it is also should be part and parcel of our whole being. That's why in this, the beloved guardian said that this should be our watchword, in the sense it should define us, not just the youth. The beloved guardian didn't just say chastity and chaste and holy life is only for the youth. If you recall, scrolling back a few paragraphs, he said it is for men and women, young and old, regardless of gender or sex, or regardless, this is for everyone. And that's why these qualities that Jeremiah and dear John are covering is so fundamentally important in the sense. So we have to really focus. How can we practice modesty? Not being, because society pushes us to really go overboard. Society tries to push us to be consumerists, to show off, to be one-upmanship. They try to do what's it called? The grass is always greener on the other person, and doing the Joneses, always having this consumer materialistic type of attitude. But to live modestly, society doesn't teach us that. This is everything that is in here is counter to what society is actually doing. And that's why when Almira's was very keen in our observations, he said, this is kind of naive. This is against the social norm. People would say, this is not normal. And the beloved guardian at the very beginning said, this is diametrically opposed to society. In fact, if you do anything opposite of what society is doing, you're probably right. And that's from the beloved guardian. He says, this is diametrically opposed to the degenerate societal norms that are actually promoting and promulgating these false norms that are immoral and debilitating to the actual spiritual growth that is fundamental for creating an ever-advancing civilization. So carry on, dear Jeremiah. You're doing excellent. Thank you.
I like him. I remember this story, and I don't know who was talking about it, but it was about Abdul Baha, and it was about, I believe it was about his wife wanting to do something special for him on his birthday, and I believe she took his coats, or what do you call these robes that they wear?
His Abba.
And she took it to the tailor and got it all fancied up. And when Abdul Baha saw it, he's like, "Where is my Abba?" Because he didn't think it was his. And then she told him what she did for it, and he requested that he take it back to the tailor and that it be sold. And then he said his old one be brought back, or one newer one bought for it, but 4 more, and he gave the other 4 away or something. So he was able to get 5 for that, for the one that was done. And so I guess that also is a lovely story about the modesty that we're supposed to try to follow.
Great story, dear Jeremiah. Another one I was thinking as you were talking, dear Jeremiah, is and modesty and humility go hand in hand, is the incredible humility of the beloved master. I mean, His Holiness Abdul Baha. I mean, and you see this in the incredible production Exemplar that the Universal House of Justice commissioned for that film. One of the incredible deeds that His Holiness Abdul Baha did was the feeding of people in Palestine, and prevented them from starvation and causing them to really die right at the end of World War I. And so it was an incredible feat that he had asked the farmers to store grain and everything. And because of that action, the British Empire knighted him. And he was given the first knighthood and the knight is called the Order of the British Empire. And so his honorary title was Sir Abdul Baha Abbas, right? And he was given a medallion, and he was carried in one of these carriages. And as he was being taken in the carriage, this is the most incredible act there's so many stories of His Holiness Abdul Baha, incredible acts, but this is one of them. Shows his humility to the nth degree. He gave that medallion to the driver. I mean, do you see? He was so modest. I mean, the medallion of the knighthood of the British Empire. And when we read, my name is Abdul Baha, my title is Abdul Baha, my qualification is Abdul Baha, my thraldom is Abdul Baha. He walked the talk. He lived it. Absolute modesty. No, I mean, what is a title coming from the British Empire? You know, any normal person would be so honored, but that is the standard, you see? So that's excellent sharing, dear Jeremiah. Thank you so much.
Purity. The word purity is also used in different contexts with different meanings. In principle, purity is freedom from contamination, but as a virtue, it implies freedom from sexual immorality and the avoidance of harmful substances. So the meaning, it's a noun, the state of being pure, free from contamination, or 3, innocence, either childish, innocence, or to be a virgin. Abdul Baha describes the attributes of a pure individual in one of his tablets. Cleanliness and sanctity in all conditions are characteristics of pure beings and necessities of free souls. The first perfection consists in cleanliness and sanctity and in purity from every defect. When man in all conditions is pure and immaculate, he will become the center of his reflection, the center of the reflection of the manifest light. In all his actions and conduct, there must first be purity, then beauty and independence. The channel must be cleansed before it is filled with sweet water. The pure eye comprehendeth the sight and the meeting of God. The pure nostril inhaleth the perfumes of the rose garden of bounty. The pure heart becometh the mirror of the beauty of truth. This is why in the heavenly books, the divine counsels and commands have been compared to water. So in the Quran, it is said, and we have caused a pure water to descend from heaven. And in the gospel, except a man hath received the baptism of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. Then it is evident that the divine teachings are the heavenly grace and the showers of the mercy of God, which purify the hearts of men. The meaning is, in all conditions, cleanliness and sanctity, purity and delicacy, exalt humanity and make the contingent beings progress, even when applied to physical things. Delicacy causeth the attainment of spirituality, as it is established in the Holy Scriptures.
Jeremiah, just a quick thought. This is one of my most favorite extracts from His Holiness Abdul Baha, and this is why. Here, Abdul Baha is defining what our eyes are for, what are our noses for, and what is our hearts for. So everything, our eyes are for the comprehension and the sight of meeting of our Lord. Our noses, in that sense, are for the pure nostrils, for the inhaling of the sweet fragrance and perfumes of the rose garden of bounty. Our tongues, our lips are for opening them for the chanting of verses and spreading of the sweet fragrances of our Lord. Everything, our tongues are for that. And our hearts are meant to become the mirror of that beauty. But you see, this is what they are intended for, and to be the channel and the vehicle for the, to bring to the channel and the vehicle for the promulgation of His name, of Him, but it needs to be cleansed and purified. Our eyes, our noses, our hearts need to be cleansed. And if they're sullied, then they cannot do their role. I mean, it's very simple. I am sick right now. So, my nose is literally congested. So my breathing in that sense is limited. So my nose, in the sense of inhaling stuff or purity of air, is limited. So in that sense, I am limited. So we all know when we're sick, to inhale beautiful things, it gets obstructed. So this is how important it is for having, ensuring that our noses, our eyes, and all of these are symbolic of the inner eye, okay? The inner nose, to be able to smell the sweet fragrance. So what is the sweet fragrance? It is the writings and the teachings. So we need to be delving into them, and with the inner eye, reading them, and be able to smell something, you have to be so close to it, right? So you have to be up in it, and then unlocking the mysteries. And so this is really what is intended. And so not only you're seeing it with your inner eye, you're seeing it with your nose, the spiritual nose, and then all of that permeates into your inner heart. Because the heart is the seat, the very essence of you. Eyes, nose, and skin per se are all the outer things. So as eventually it gets closer and closer and closer into you per se, and the heart. So then once your eyes have received, just like the light has come in, and the nose, the smells and everything permeates, eventually it permeates into your very being. So you have to be up in it, just like, and then the more you're up in it, per se, the teachings, the actions, doing it, living it, doing it, serving and teaching, eventually that practice will eventually penetrate your heart and transform you. So that's really, per se, the order of things in this sense of purification. Thank you very much, dear Jeremiah. Thank you.
Before you go, Ehsan, can I ask you this use of the word delicacy? Can you explain that? That lose you.
What word are you asking about?
Delicacy.
Delicacy?
Yeah. Purity and delicacy.
I don't think Ehsan heard you.
Yes, I was just looking where it was in the context. Thank you, dear John and Jeremiah. So it's the meaning is in all conditions: cleanliness, sanctity, purity, and delicacy. So it's not delicacy in the sense of the finery of foods or things, like it's always in scrumptious delicacy, like this little patisserie, Mm-hmm. It's to be delicate, to be refined, upright conduct, to be in that sense, to have that delicacy of nature. If you look up the terminology, it's more to be refined, and having that sense of stature and qualities of nobility, and but not nobility as in, there's a hidden word. Noble have I created thee. Why dost thou abase thyself? To have that delicacy of character, not boorish of a character. Where to be delicate in the sense of refinement. That's in that sense. Look, you can look up the definition more yourself and look at other contexts to get a better understanding. Thank you very much, dear Jeremiah. But this is just my thoughts on it.
Thank you for that clarification, because all I could think about was a pastry shop. Yeah. So thank you. O Son of Spirit, my first counsel is this: possess a pure, kindly, and radiant heart, that thine may be a sovereignty ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. This is in the hidden words. I don't know, is this the first one? Yeah, I think it is. Spiritual purity, which is the purity of oneself from vices, faults, sins, and replacing them with good deeds, whether in speech or deeds.
So if you recall from the Beloved Guardian in Advent, I think it was paragraph 32, where he says, weed out these faults, habits, and tendencies, right? Weed out these faults, habits, and tendencies. To do what? See, this is all about the purification, so this is about spiritual purity. So first we have to establish these faults, habits, and tendencies in us, which are the faults, sins, and then replace them with good deeds, whether in speech or deeds. And so this is what purification is. First, the Beloved Guardian, earlier on, 32, we're now studying paragraph 47. He says, establish, delve deep into your own inner life. Really get to know you. Who are you? What are your likes, your wishes? And what is your mind? What are you truly thinking about? Even what are the things you watch? Everything. Really get to know you. Bring yourself to account. And then you can say, these are my faults. These are my sins. And then work hard on yourself to replace them in your daily regime. To work on yourself. This is what it means to be a Baha'i. This is what it means to work on living the life. This is the practice. It's not just like, oh, I show up at feast, once every 19 days, or I gave to the Baha'i Fund. These are all good. But to be a true Baha'i means it is a daily exercise. This is what it means. That most of the life of a Baha'i is private. And it's that exercise of our inner life, our fighting these battles. And this is what it means to work to refine ourselves so that, as dear Jeremiah in a past session had read, that when we enter into a city, even the dust cries out, oh my God, this is a Baha'i has entered the city. That is what it should be. This is the standard. Even the dust will proclaim, who is this entering the city? Who is this? Even the whole area would be so excited by your presence because of your work that you've done on your inner life. This is how we should be working on. That's it. I talked a lot on that. Anyway, dear Jeremiah, carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. Therefore, since we have these promises, dear friends, let us purify ourselves from everything that contaminates body and spirit, perfecting holiness out of reverence for God. 2 Corinthians 7:1. When asked for a definition of a pure heart, Abdu'l-Baha said, the pure heart is one that is entirely cut away from self. To be selfless is to be pure. Temperance. Temperance is a voluntary self-restraint in controlling an excess of emotions and impulses, such as anger, vanity, and sexual desire, originating from one's character. Traditionally, temperance has been recognized as a virtue in the sacred writings of religions and the writings of philosophers. It has been one of the cardinal virtues in Greek philosophy, Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism. says temperance is the spirit-empowered ability to control your appetites, emotions, and attitudes. Self-control, Greek, which is ekratia, the virtue of one who masters his desires and possessions, restraint exercised over one's own impulses, emotions, or desires. And you have these 4 cardinal virtues: temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. Wow, interesting. Happy Ayamiha. The Ayamiha, or intercalary days, are a period of time when Baha'is focus more than usual on hospitality, charity, gift giving, giving gifts, and preparing for the month of fasting. This year, the Ayamiha period falls between 25 February to 28 February. Where there is love, nothing is too much trouble, and there's always time.
Sorry about that, Jeremiah. This slide was for the Texas class, and this was. So
I was about to ask you, like, if you could explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, we were covering it during a period of Ayamiha. But temperance, which we're now covering. So first we covered purity, and now we're into temperance. Temperance is the control of our emotions. I mean, which we all know our emotions, anger and love. And imagine if someone is always angry, or, you know, and there's a great animation. It's Pixar movie, Inside Us. And
Okay.
and so where the emotions are in control, per se, in control, and we have to, if any one of these emotions dominate or is domineering over the individual, you can see in that movie how it creates a disorder within that person. And so temperance is the self-restraint, controlling of excess emotions. So it's not that any one of the emotions is per se bad, but it's about balance. It's about living a whole life well, but not any one of our emotions domineering or controlling our life. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Be not the slave of your moods, but their master. But if you are so angry, so depressed, and so sore that your spirit cannot find deliverance and peace, even in prayer, then quickly go and give some pleasure to someone lowly or sorrowful, or to a guilty or innocent sufferer. Sacrifice yourself, your talent, your time, your rest to another, to one who has to bear a heavier load than you, and your unhappy mood will dissolve into a blessed, contented submission to God. And is that because it just simply says, wow, I didn't realize, you know, like, you definitely have it way worse than I do? Is it kind of, is that what happens there? To me, that's what that means, is when you go and do that, you're forced to actually reconcile and realize where you are at this point in time compared to the rest of humanity.
Sure, I agree. And, you know, from a psychological point of view, and apart from that, I mean, if you study the life of His Holiness Abdul Baha, you know, really study his life, he had it really bad. He had it so bad from the youngest of age all the way till elderly, and in prison. I mean, in the worst prisons. I mean, really study, but he lost himself in the sense of service. He gave everything for service. And so it says, and so this is what from His Holiness Abdul Baha says: be not the slave of your moods, because it's very easy to become very angry, or very upset, or enraged, or very and it says, if you're very upset, if you become so angry or depressed, He says, what does it say? Then quickly go and give some pleasure to someone else. Imagine that. If you go do service or do a good deed for someone else, that good deed will bring you happiness. This is the prescription. So he said, if you go, to offer service or go do something to someone else, by doing that will bring you joy. Instead of looking at your own problems, your own ego, your own self, your own, I'm hurt, I'm in pain, I. Maybe that is the problem too. But if you look at others and try to offer help and joy to someone else, that joy will translate and bring more fulfillment to your broken heart or your pain, your anger. And that's through doing service and joy to others, your heart will start being, the pain there will be alleviated and will go away. And this is the prescription that Abdul Baha gave. So wanted to include that because it's about temperance, to be able to control our emotions. And these are all lifelong things. Sometimes one of these might be easier for an individual, but often they're very challenging. And so this is, this is what it is. This is our prescription. Thank you, dear Jeremiah. Thank you.
Thank you. His Holiness Abdul Baha refers to temperance as the inward perfection. The spiritually learned must be characterized by both inward and outward perfections. They must possess a good character, an enlightened nature, a pure intent, as well as an intellectual power, brilliance and discernment, intuition, discretion and foresight, temperance, reverence, and a heartfelt fear of God. For an unlit candle, however great in diameter and tall, is no better than a barren palm tree or a pile of dead wood. Decency is a behavior that is good, moral, and acceptable in a moral society. In the Baha'i faith, decent behavior complies with the universal principles and norms, as well as with the moral standards set in the writings. There are many references to the virtue of decency in the Baha'i writings. In a tablet, Baha'u'llah states, "We have permitted you to listen to music and singing. Beware lest such listening cause you to transgress the bounds of decency and dignity." Decency meaning is the level to which someone conforms to the standards of morality or what is right. Qualities and attributes of decency are such as beauty of spirit, common sense, truth, humility, thriftiness, dignity, loyalty, courtesy, respect, sense of duty, love, kindness, innovation, personal responsibility, class, not sure what class is, honor, community, caring, moral, pride in one's work, civility, knowledge, civic pride, curiosity. The beloved guardian refers to the obscuration of the sense of decency when the light of religion is quenched in men's hearts. No wonder, therefore, that when, as a result of human perversity, the light of religion is quenched in men's heart, and the divinely appointed robe designed to adorn the human temple is deliberately discarded, a deplorable decline in the fortunes of humanity immediately sets in, bringing in its wake all the evils which a wayward soul is capable of revealing. The perversion of human nature, the degradation of human conduct, the corruption and dissolution of human institutions reveal themselves under such circumstances in their worst and most revolting aspects. Human character is debased, confidence is shaken, the nerves of discipline are relaxed, the voice of human conscience is stilled, the sense of decency and shame is obscured, conceptions of duty, of solidarity, of reciprocity and loyalty are distorted, and the very feelings of peacefulness, of joy, and of hope is gradually extinguished. Decency, continued. The Supreme Body, the Universal House of Justice, in one of its messages to the youth emphasizes that the life of a Baha'i will be characterized by truthfulness and decency. He will walk uprightly among his fellow men, dependent upon none save God, yet linked by bonds of love and brotherhood with all mankind. He will be entirely detached from the loose standards, the decadent theories, the frenetic experimentation, the desperation of present-day society. Will look upon his neighbors with a bright and friendly face and be a beacon, lights, and a haven for all those who would emulate his strength of character and assurance of soul. Clean-mindedness is the quality of the inner life and indicates how noble our thoughts and feelings are in response to what we see, hear, or experience. The quality of our inner life plays a key role in the outcome of our Baha'i endeavors and the advancement of the cause. The beloved guardian states, not by the force of numbers, not by the mere exposition of a set of new and noble principles, not by an organized campaign of teaching, no matter how worldwide and elaborate in its character, not even by the staunchness of our faith or the exaltation of our enthusiasm, can we ultimately hope to vindicate in the eyes of a critical and skeptical age the supreme claim of the Apa revelation. One thing and only one thing will unfailingly and alone secure the undoubted triumph of the sacred cause, namely the extent to which our own inner life and private character mirror forth in their manifold aspects the splendor of those eternal principles proclaimed by Baha'u'llah. That is a lot.
This is such an incredible paragraph by the beloved guardian. One thing and only one thing, unfailingly and alone, will secure the undoubted triumph of this cause, namely the extent to which our inner life and private character mirror forth the manifold aspects of the splendor of those eternal principles proclaimed by Baha'u'llah. So this is the only thing, in the sense, the one thing and only one thing. How much are we working to mirror these principles, to be a Baha'i? Are we working on this rectitude of conduct? Are we working on these implications of a chaste and holy life? Because these are what the beloved guardian says, one thing and only one thing, unfailingly and alone, will secure the undoubted triumph of this cause. Namely, the extent to which you are working on this. That's it. Everything else. It doesn't say, he says, not the campaigns of teaching, nor the exposition of a set of new noble principles. Nothing. How much are you working on yourself? And it's through that we'll be able to be successful. And that's why these are called spiritual prerequisites for success in all teaching campaigns. So, and this is clean-mindedness that dear Jeremiah is covering right now, is what is coming into us in the sense, and what are we thinking? What is on our thoughts? And in that sense, we should ensure that we protect our thoughts, watch our thoughts, And the more that our mind is active on spiritual things, our mind will not drift to other things.
Right.
So, excellent. Thank you, dear Jeremiah.
Thank you. And that is the conclusion, I believe. No. Let's see. A soul grows by the exercise of human virtues and the observance of human morals. Some believe that it is only great power that can hold evil in check. But that is not what I have found. I have found it is the small things, everyday deeds by ordinary folk that keeps the darkness at bay. That's cute.
So these are two quotes that I really loved. Obviously, one is from the Baha'i writings and the other is from Gandalf the Grey.
Or J.R.R. Tolkien, right?
Of course, but absolutely, dear Jeremiah. So, but why I included the one on the left is because it is an exercise. That's what it is. Working on this reality, this spiritual reality, and we have to exercise every day. Just like our physical reality, we don't exercise. Our muscles, our heart, our health will start fading. Our spiritual reality should be in control. It is the jockey, the rider, and that needs exercise. So our soul grows by the exercise of what? Human virtues, as well as the observance of human morals. So by actually doing it, the practice of these qualities in our life is that exercise. And then why I included this, of all the quotes, of all the possible wonderful quotes, I included this one from, as Gandalf the Grey, or as dear Jeremiah said, from J.R.R. Tolkien. Some believe that it is only great power that can hold evil in check. This is not true. He says it is the small things, everyday deeds by ordinary folks. It's by you and me will hold the darkness at bay. And we're talking about these darknesses, the dark forces. It is you and I working on ourselves. It is you and I working on our characters that we'll be able to transform not only ourselves, but our community, our Baha'i communities. And then through that transformation, we'll be able to transform the whole world by having a model, per se, to present to the world that this is what it means to uphold the standard of a chaste and holy life, to uphold, present, this is what it means to have rectitude of conduct that dear John and Jeremiah have presented in a past session. So this is what the beloved guardian is saying in this presentation. So this is why it's by ordinary deeds, it's by the deeds of us ordinary folk that we will be able to keep this darkness at bay. Excellent, wonderful exposition, dear Jeremiah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Essen. All right, and that is the last one. So I guess we have a couple minutes, so I'll pull up the prayer for the Southern States, and then we will say good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are.
All right. So are we ready for our beautiful prayer for someone to say it? Let's see if we could have a volunteer.
Pam or Robert?
I volunteer, John.
All right, Payam. Thank you, Payam.
I said John.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Okay. One moment, please.
I said the last one. It's only,
all right, here we go. Oh my God, Thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest. Thank you for joining us for this session number 20. We look forward to next week's session number 21, where we'll be going over paragraphs, probably reviewing 46 just a little bit maybe, or 47, but we're going to be moving on. Please read paragraphs 47, 48, and 49. And that would be very helpful. All right.